Hey everyone, it's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. Today on the show, we've got our good friend Luntadila. How are you today? What's going on?
I am great, Jerry. It's great to be with you. It's really amazing to be with you. So great memories about the Fledge, the people you touched so much in the Lansing area. I miss you, buddy.
I missed you too. I saw a post you did on LinkedIn. I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh man, I gotta ask him to come on every damn day." And I was so happy when you did.
Yeah,
Because one, we've got so much to catch up on. So many things have happened since you moved away from East Lansing or Lansing.
absolutely.
Uh, but let's not jump ahead too far. People don't know we know each other yet, so we got to let them know that. So why don't you start with telling us about yourself and about the projects that you're working on?
Hey, awesome. I love to learn about other people, but when I have an opportunity like this to 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 share a little bit about what I'm working on, I'm also glad. So my name is Luntadila Paulo, and I am from Angola originally, a country in Southwest Africa ish. I came to the United States about 7 years ago for school, and I've been here since. I got my bachelor degree from Michigan State and my MBA from Eastern Illinois. And I recently moved to Chicago, where we are in the process of launching an investment group, Ashanti Investments group, where I serve as an officer. I work in public accounting as well, and I conduct a series of conversation through my YouTube channel to educate people about the African continent and life outside of the US borders. So that's a little bit about what I've been currently involved with. Yeah, so excited to be here.
Well, tell everyone what your YouTube channel is.
Yeah, awesome. The YouTube channel is Conversation Around Africa. It's exactly with my name, Luntadila Paulo. That's the YouTube channel. And initially, actually, when I started having this conversation, my focus, to be honest, was to help other young Africans to empower them to learn different skill, to motivate them, to have hope, because across the continent, for many young people like myself, life isn't easy, just as it is not easy for young Americans in the United States, depending on the family environment you grew up in. So the focus was really to inspire the youth across the continent and get some people to mentor them, train them in entrepreneurship and similar ventures. But I recently came to a realization that there is a lot of activism work being done in that space, and there is so much more lack of knowledge of life in Africa or Latin America or Asia in the United States that it's quite something. So I made up my mind that it's important to tell people in the United States or other Western developed nations to think beyond their borders, their national ideologies. For example, the last US election is possibly one of the very few US elections that did not have discussion around foreign policies. So if you follow the vice president discussion or the presidential debate, you hardly would have noticed any discussion about what is the US foreign policy other than from Joe Biden saying we will be back to work with our allies. How? What about other nations? So my goal in this space right now is really to educate people, to tell them, hey, the coffee you drink today, there is a supply chain behind it, and there might be people suffering injustices to provide you this fresh coffee, right? So it's kind of moving toward that space. So we are preparing a series of conversation and recording, and also working on a first draft of my book that is really gonna focus in that space.
I love it, man. There's so many things to talk about out of what you just said.
Yeah.
Super interesting about the average American. Like, I really spend a lot of time to make sure I know what's going on in Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq, and pay attention to that because of so much work I've done over in the Middle East. But I'll bet you the average American has no idea. Like, they haven't even cared about that for months and months. It's been about getting that other guy to win or to lose or whatever, right? That's super insightful. I really like that point. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but thanks for using that as an example. I think that is very good.
Yeah.
So UMSU guys always are bringing up supply chain, since you're ranked like number 1 or 2 in the nation every year.
Yeah.
So,
Go green.
so I don't know. What do you guys say? Go green?
Go white.
Yeah. I've never said that before in my life. It's the first time right here.
Hey, you can start now.
I know it might surprise you. I'm running the show out of Lansing, and Michigan State's right there.
Yeah.
But I'm not a Michigan State grad. Sorry, but you are, and thank you for that. There's I'm very happy you're a Michigan State grad, because I got to meet you because of it. And I remember, it was, you guys came to me with a project, and the Leaders of Africa.
Yeah.
Is that right? And I like what you're saying about there's a lot of activism going on, but activism in itself needs a progression into a different type of, it matures into something else, right? That is education and organization and growth. Expound on that a little bit more. Like, how are you engaging with people in this conversation? How are you getting people in the Western countries to be interested in this, to care about it?
Hey, absolutely. So let me step back a little bit before moving in that direction. So Leaders of Africa as an organization does an amazing work with training young Africans across the continent, providing methodological research training and equip them to do research on the ground. So it's a great vehicle. Now, outside of Leaders of Africa, which is not an activist organization, more so an educational organization, I have friends in the UK, in Angola, across the African continent, doing a lot of activism work, social awareness about a lot of issues, especially with the widespread availability and access to internet today. The African youth can connect on social media and share message about the reality on the ground, about what is happening in the continent. Now, from what I stand, I see an Africa struggling, but the struggle or the fight for, quote unquote, the redemption of the continent Africa will never be won just by the African people. Let me tell you why. Let's go back before 1994. South Africa was under apartheid, very racist regime controlling massive amount of people. One of the reason apartheid was broken down and brought to its knee was because people in Western country, which political scientists call international community, they started to talk. Students at Michigan State started to protest, march, to say to the U.S. senators, House of Representative members, hey, you need to look at South Africa. Whatever is happening there, it's not good. And the pressure, right?
In Ann Arbor, I was one of the marchers, and we
Look
quit
at
drinking
that.
Coca-Cola, and we didn't play Sun City. We ain't gonna play Sun City, right? Uh,
Awesome. Look at that.
um,
So
but yeah, so that pressure. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
no, that's awesome. That's a very important contribution. Yeah. So, that pressure, that education of the American population drove key action of the government in the United States, the United Nations, Europe, to say, hey, we need to do things differently. We need to maybe try a different path. And I believe that's really the reality we are facing today in Africa. Dictatorship regimes are not going to weaken only because people in Africa started marching, but we need to look at international allies who are backing them up, foreign governments who want to keep them in power so that foreign corporation can get natural resources by exploiting people in the continent. So it's around this mission of talking to people through your program every damn day, right? To start this conversation with people, to tell them, hey, you need to call your senator, not to tell them that, Detroit is falling apart, but to also tell them, hey, whatever we're doing outside of the US matters. Whatever the actions our government is taking outside of our borders sends a powerful message about our choices, our priorities, our desire of humanity. So it's in that space that I think it's important for people in the diaspora, including myself, that needs to come forth and start having this conversation to educate people, to help them think about, hi, what is the foreign policy of the United States for this region of the world? For a very long time, the United States government supported dictators across Latin America. A lot of Americans don't necessarily, US citizens, don't necessarily think about why so many people are leaving Latin America, Mexico to come to the United States, other than just we have to prevent immigration. We shouldn't let people come in. So we need to go to the root of problems, right? And that's part of the role people in the diaspora have to play. Just a quick fun fact. The African Union generally divided historically the continent by 5 regions. Today there is a 6th region. Do you wanna guess what is that 6th region?
Uh, I
I'll
don't know
help
what it
you.
was. Okay.
The 6th region of the African continent is the diaspora. Has more than 170 million Africans across the world,
Mm.
contributing more than $49 billion in remittances every year. So can you imagine that?
Yeah, that's that's a huge region
Yeah, it
without a
is.
region, right? So, so this is interesting to me because when you were talking about the coffee that I drink,
Yeah,
and all the way back to the aren't they called the cherry or something like that? It's not a coffee bean at that point. The cherry grows on
yeah,
a bush or something. Um, the I thought you were going to say that the consumer pressure on the supply chain could make change, but then you kind of flip to our pressure on the government. We need both, or is it really most of it has to be U.S. policy changing? And I've got some supply chain things on my mind that are a little
yeah,
bigger. Like I think about the heavy metals that are mined all
yeah,
over Africa that might be land controlled by China, which then might be the supplier of my iPhone that's full of heavy metals from Africa, really. And then I think blood diamond and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah.
how much of that? How does that all fit in? How how can I as a consumer maybe help?
Hey, that's a great question, Jerry. So the way that I've been thinking and talking about people and also learning from them is really bidimensional, because let's think about what's the role of the government, right? The government is primarily in the business of creating order and social structures in a way. So businesses won't operate outside of what the government allows to happen. On the other side, today, businesses, especially multinationals, have grown so powerful that they can control some governments, right? So think about, I'm not suggesting that Apple or Amazon or any multinational actually do this, but Apple is valued at more than 1 trillion US dollar, right? That's more than 30 to 40% of the entire African continent GDP.
Yeah.
So if you put Amazon, Apple, IBM, and Facebook together, only four companies, that's the entire GDP of the African continent. So do you think when one of these companies decide to move to Africa, as they are starting to move, African government will have power to negotiate tete-a-tete?
Yeah. I mean, these companies are basically stateless and walking around the globe being bullies in a lot of cases. I know you don't want to call out Amazon. I'll call out Amazon every day. So sorry. But
Right.
yeah.
So, we are at that point. You raised a very important point there, or question, that, on one hand, government have to be held accountable because of their power in the international environment. On the other hand, there is corporations that also needs to be held accountable, right? There is an entire supply chain. So if you look into a lot of international trade agreement, you will see governments, for example, either European or the United States, coming to the table to promote the interest of companies in their countries because they benefit from taxes. Let me give you an example. The World Trade Organization that came to exist in 1995, prior to that was the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. That organization basically crippled developing countries to not ever be self-sufficient to produce food. In the name of what? Companies like Monsanto, JB, to gain, entire monopolies in food production. They crippled entire agricultural bases in Latin America. Why? Because they needed these countries to be dependent on the US. And when these countries say, hey, we're not going to play this game anymore, they're already so indebted that they can't get away. If you don't want to play our game, then pay the debt. And these countries will never be able to pay.
Yeah.
They don't have money. They don't have resources to produce income to pay the debt.
So
invasion.
Man, that you're hitting all of my buttons today, because a lot of times we've also hidden behind charity, like in Haiti, when we just completely saturated their market with free rice and wiped out the rice agriculture industry. And now they're dependent on rice that's dependent on I call them pharmaceuticals, with the drug companies for the farmers. Monsanto and those guys. Man, this is so interesting. So you've got tons of important work to do here. I mean, sometimes I wake up and think, all right, I got to go get these people fed and I got to go do this. And feel like I have important work, but you got a whole continent. You know, I'm just worried about the east side. You're worried about huge landmass.
Well, honestly, I think about the generations to come, right? Our generation, especially in Western countries, is becoming aware of the environmental implication of the corporate activity. And therefore, this generation started asking for, environmental protection, started pushing for carbon emission reduction, started pushing for we need corporation to start pushing only profit in detriment of the environment, right? But what the generation of these really amazing young people in countries like the United States or many European countries are failing to see is that the world is not only Europe, Australia, and the United States or Canada, that the world has more than 194 countries. And these countries are not in Europe or the United or North America, right? So, for example, the destruction of the Amazon in Brazil, a lot of pool of the carbon is contained in that forest. But because the world is not looking into what the President Donald Trump calls shit all, Brazil is not a country for that matter. And when Americans think about Brazil is girls with big butts or, the beach and, adventure, pleasure, and so forth. But there are a lot of critical problems in that society.
We're going to get lots of views because I'm going to use hashtag girls with big butts as
I mean, we need to, one of the things that I always encourage people to do is adopt one or few countries and follow what's happening in these spaces, right? So
oh
let
yeah,
me give you an example. The DRC Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo,
yeah,
has transitioned to so many different stages, but between 1997 to today, more than 6 million people had died because of political instability caused by sponsored militias to destabilize that country so that many foreign Western countries can get minerals to use in the production of cell phone, the laptop and computer microphone we're using,
yeah.
right? So that's all that number continued to increase. The Second World War had the genocide of the Jews was around, if I'm not wrong, 4 or 5 million people, and we have an entire museum and memorials about that.
Yeah. So
So
and to be clear, you're saying we should have both, not one or the other. But for 6 million people, it's a travesty that the world hasn't stood up and looked at that. And right here on the east side, we can feel this because if we go just one block over to Jones Street, we're on Eureka and Holmes. There are six refugee families from the DCR, and they have been displaced and they have been running, and a lot of the kids are in houses that aren't their real parents because their parents were killed in this. This is one block away, and we still don't feel the pain like we do other things.
right.
You're hitting again all of my buttons, and this time I'm getting upset.
I mean, yeah. So the bottom line is we need to hold both sides accountable, the government the corporation. When there are mornings that I wake up and this is my ritual. I get up, I go to the kitchen, and I grab a cup of coffee, right? And I'm thinking, what farm this coffee came from, right?
So, just real quick, what's something you do every damn day?
Hey, awesome. Let me share that with you. Every damn day, I drink my coffee with some creamer on it before I start my day. Yeah.
But you were gonna tell the story, and I wanted to sneak it in.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, here's the story, right? I get up in the morning and I grab this cup of coffee, and as I think about how to start my day, my mind really goes into what where did this coffee came from? Did the people who worked to harvest these coffee beans get a fair pay? Right. My wife today encourages me a lot. She has been an activist in Michigan before we moved here, and she's very engaged with social issues. And she has been a major drive to me to think about, because I'm a business person, I'm in the business environment, and she's always there to tell me, hey, whatever goes into your mind, remember why are you doing this for? It's not for the money, it's not for fame, it's not to build a legacy, it's for the good of humankind, right?
I like to see that somebody with an MBA, somebody that's thinking business, somebody that's in, we should talk about Ashanti for sure, is putting that moral compass into capitalism.
Yeah.
It's so important, because Amazon doesn't have a moral compass. I'm sorry. They've worth too much money. The EU is suing them today. There's all sorts of relevant things that you are saying right now. Man, you are full of knowledge. I want to go to activism for a second, and then we'll go to Ashanti, if you don't mind.
Of course. Yeah.
So the Black Lives Matter movement, is happening in the U.S. And then I look at, Nigeria is having problems with, I think they might have even set some oil fields on fire. The protesters have. I call them protesters. People probably call them rioters, but I think they're showing up to be activists and to fight for their people.
Yeah.
So, how's that playing out? And this is police corruption too, a lot in Nigeria. Yeah. What's your view on that? How are you watching this, and how do you breathe, and just
Oh God.
keep it together?
It's pretty intense. Like, clearly I am not in Nigeria, and I can't just say, hey, whatever it's happening in Nigeria is because of X, Y, and Z. But here's the reality, though. We are in a global village, right? That's why I'm always back to tell my American friends and family, we have to think beyond national borders. We have to. There is no way not to. What is taking so much fire today in Nigeria is not a recent event. The only way it was able to be broadcast to the rest of the world is because today there is internet and social media. The government on TV never ever will put that on TV.
Right.
It doesn't do good to them, And it's not only Nigeria. If you look across the continent, you will see, even in my home country, hometown, Luanda in Angola, police brutality is a reality. People get killed, whether or not they are stealing or doing whatever. People are killed without judgment, without trial. There is no rule of law. And when these things become, it's connected not only within African countries, but the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States, they find what was happening in the 1960s, 1950s. The Pan-Africanists in the African continent started to fight for decolonization. And here in the United States, the civil rights movement, they found connection. They came together to find ways to fight oppressive systems in both parts of the world. Martin Luther King visited Africa several times before he was assassinated. The same way with Malcolm X. These newly formed African countries after independence in the 1960s, all these guys were buddies.
Yeah. And
And
Muhammad Ali.
and the same thing is happening again today, right? We're seeing African leaders, probably not from the government, right? With activists in the United States coming together under the Black Lives Movement, not only in Africa and in the United States, but across the world. You know,
Yeah.
the movement is growing. You see Africans and African Americans, especially African living in Europe, they're holding rallies, protests for Black Lives Matter in Paris, in
Yeah.
London,
It was.
right?
I loved it. I loved it.
So, it's the type of initiative we need to be moving to. We need to think beyond national borders. The world is it desperately needs us to today to work together and not against one another, right?
Yep. So when I asked you to be on the show, you went and did a little bit. You watched a couple of the shows,
Yeah.
and then you told me that you liked my background, and I didn't quite understand it. I mean, I was like, okay, I mean, those carvings are cool and all of that. Then I went to your LinkedIn profile and scrolled down just to get to know everything, about, I learned about your MBA at Eastern Illinois and things like that. But I saw the Ashanti investment and I was like, all right, cool. And I think I mean, the reason I have these guys here with me or her here with me, is because she is a big motivator for me. She is my fertility goddess. She is my creative motivation. She is my productivity motivation. She is a protector in a lot of ways, and she has been for decades.
Yeah.
I've got her tattooed. I self-tattooed on my knee. It is, if I doodle her. She's my girl, if you would.
Awesome. Love it.
And I've always I collect her. I see her everywhere. So I just, which is what I wanted you to tell us about. But I get so excited about her. But tell us about Ashanti, because I think it's cool what you guys are doing.
Hey, I appreciate. So shifting from a little bit of the education sphere and moving to the business person. So Ashanti Investments Group, named after the Ashanti Kingdom in today what is known as Ghana, generally speaking. We started this investment group to really focus into investing into recession proof business, small businesses. So we operate as a holding company. Basically, we buy companies, we hold them, restructure where it's needed, and we make other acquisitions in the same space, consolidate and exit or hold for long-term investments. So we've been in touch with some potential investors. We are screening some deals. Right now, we're looking into some of the very basic what is the typical boring industries that a lot of people don't really pay attention to, but that's what holds this economy, this country, like small businesses, you know, the vacuum cleaner, the laundromat. We're looking into, you know, the end of the corner strip mall. We're looking into these sort of investments, the HVAC of the small town. You know, those are our, you know, focus. We're not going. Yeah, go ahead.
At first, I thought you were going to say like you were doing some tech stuff too, and kind of using like Reid Hoffman, who started LinkedIn, wrote this blitz blitz scaling, where you buy up
Yeah,
uh, things in similar spaces, and so you scale that way by
yeah,
basically acquiring users. But I mean, you're doing super basic, super HVAC is not going away in a
yeah.
recession,
You know,
not in a
the
recession.
things that are never gonna go away, because these type of businesses are cash flow positive
Yeah.
with good management in place. They are in a really great place because they already have track record, they have reputation, they have, you know, the community loves them, and what they really need is great management in place, and that's what we do, that's what we have, you
Well,
know.
so I've got a question from our guest yesterday, Danny
Yeah.
Raymond. She passed a question along to you, which is, can you tell us a story about how you have really helped somebody? Because I know that through your activism, your education, your investments,
Hmm.
it's about doing better for the human race. I want to
Hmm.
kind of combine that for into Ashanti. Like, how does that help? How does that help a guy that works at that HVAC place? Is he losing his job? Is everything being dismantled? Or
Hey, that's a great question, Cherry. So actually, we're not firing people. So here's how we think about business. You know, we're not against, you know, other economic system like socialism or communism, but we believe that capitalism is good despite its flaws, and what we bring into capitalism is compassion, humanity. You see where I'm going?
I
So
100%.
when you can make the world a better place by creating jobs for people, by giving someone who've been, let me give you a scenario. I'm not gonna use the name of the deal we're looking into because most of this work we do, it's strictly confidential. We sign NDAs. There is this business for sale. It's a construction company. They do business here in Illinois and some Midwest states. They do road maintenance, roads restructuring, and this type of work. The owner of this business, right, is advanced in age. I believe he's probably around 70, and they want to retire. They want to spend the remaining portion of their life taking care of the grandkids and so forth. When we step into the business, we're not coming to fire them because we need them to maintain their legacy. Because when we buy a business, we are basically taking into that legacy they built throughout their life and conserve it as much as possible. So a lot of the people working in that company are the people who've been with the company probably for the last 10, 20 years. They have so much to give, so much to offer, you know. And something that we've been thinking with the board of directors is to bring things like compensation plan, retirement plan. We've been thinking about, you know, a portion of our profit to be reinvested in the community where this business is fun,
Yeah.
right? You
See, I
know.
knew your answer was going to be spectacular. I didn't really think you were the Wolf of Wall Street or whatever. firing these people. So,
Yeah.
and I want to ask you so many questions, but we're going to run out of time. You
Yeah.
you know, so in our communities, in our neighborhoods, we have these gaps where maybe the grandparents are raising their grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe there's been the AIDS epidemic, the opioid epidemic, the crack epidemic, and then there's the social injustices that get people of color arrested and put into jails at a disproportionate amount. And so we have these mothers and these fathers, mostly the fathers, that have been taken away from our community. And so we have this gap between the grandparent and the grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm starting to think, if that grandparent owned a business, that gap is going to cause generational wealth to be lost, because that company, it's going to be hard to turn over to your son and then your son to their
Mm-hmm.
son, because
Right.
that gap is going to be harder to leap.
Right.
Is
So
that, yeah.
that's actually an intriguing question. So here's how I would think about it. Not that we have encountered a similar situation or in the past. If you look into who owns the majority of small businesses in the United States that have been cash flow positive for a long term, for a long run, you'll see they are mainly white male. And white males' rate of incarceration is considerably smaller compared to other ethnicities in the United States. So for that wealth skipping or wealth gap to exist, it have to be either in the African American or Latino American or other ethnicity in the United States, which frankly, it's not something we have encountered so far.
Hmm.
I will say 99% of the businesses we are looking and we have looked in the past, they are owned by white male. Not even white female, but
Yeah,
white male.
I know
So,
for I know for sure.
yeah, so there is that, but on the other end though, when we approach a business seller, sometimes they're working with a business broker, so we are really trying the best to make sure that that person who is handing us their business, their life, their life's work is still gonna be protected, right? So there is always way to structure the deal in the way that can still allow the former business owner to be financially secure in the next several years. So that's another conversation. So you can still have the owner to have some equity on in the company or to have some provision fees included. um,
Right.
you know yeah.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Hmm.
Tomorrow on the show, I have excuse me, a
Hmm.
young college student that is he's studying electrical engineering and performing arts technology. What
Awesome.
what question would you like me to pass on to him from you? Uh,
Hey, I have so many questions, but here's one. I'd love the our University of Michigan guy to answer for me. Forgive me, I forgot the name.
Adam.
If,
Adam.
Adam, thank you. So Adam, if except or besides the United States, if you could be born anywhere else in the world, where would that be? I'll be waiting for your answer, Adam.
And you saw the joy on my face when you asked that question earlier,
Yeah.
because I think it is an excellent question. And I'm going to flip it on you because that's what we do.
Hey.
What, who, oh crap, there's a bat in my office.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, this is kind of scary. Uh, so who, besides, I'm scared, besides Angola, where do you wish you? Where would be another place that you would have liked to have been born?
Huh. I have a few countries in mind, and fortunately or unfortunately, they are all in Africa.
It's
Because
not.
it's such a
It's
tough
not the
question.
United States.
Well, unfortunately, not. It's not the United States. The United States have everything it needs to be an excellent country. I believe my contribution would be better used elsewhere. So if I had the choice to select where to be born, I would go either with Tanzania or Nigeria or Ghana.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I uh I would love to go to all of those places and see. Uh so let me take care of a little business. Uh every damn day airs every damn day at 2 o'clock. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel so everybody can see that. Friday morning at 9 a.m. we have 99 problems, but a pitch ain't one. Mondays we start up our coding club again. So we're broadcasting that virtual, so you can watch them live or go back and see the recording. We're also doing 10,000 Fledges every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. So that's kind of my business, my advertisement for ourselves.
Awesome.
The bat is still freaking me out. I don't know where it went.
I mean, the cat will take care of it.
You saw the cat, right?
Yeah, getting ready.
I'm pretty sure she abandoned me. So, yeah. What we covered so much here. This is, I think, the longest show that I've done. I am filled with one joy. I'm filled with motivation. I'm filled with I don't even know. It's just I'm filled with hope for everybody because people like you exist, and it's just amazing what you're doing for your community and what you're doing to educate people and to get something. I mean, what an impact you're going to be able to make. And I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to have evidence that I've talked to you before you become, this famous investor guy. This was a beautiful conversation, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. Take us out with some words of wisdom. Take us out with anything. You
Hey,
can do
awesome.
deuces if you want.
All right. I've always loved speaking with you. You invited me to the show to share a little bit about my experience, but frankly, the times we had the chance of talking in Lansing, you had so much to give that I was just really amazed, and very often I would sit silent and just enjoy and learn with you, you know. So I really appreciate that you're taking a step back and helping people like me to bring the message, the contribution we have to the rest of the world. So thank you for it, Jerry. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. And you and I are going to cross paths a few more times here. We got something else we got
Absolutely.
to talk about.
Yep.
So we'll get there, though.
So my closing message though is I'm not really gonna focus into Ashanti Investments Group, but what I would say is for my American friends, for people living in the US or watching the show in Europe or Australia or Japan, God knows where you are. My hope for you is to think beyond your national borders, to think beyond the issues affecting and impacting your immediate environment, your immediate country, because the word calls for all of us. We need to work together and hold both the government and corporations accountable for what is going on across the world. I do not take for granted the coffee that I drink, the air conditioned house apartment that I live in, or now that the winter is coming, there is a heat around here. More than half of the world's population, that's more than 4 billion people, do not have this luxury. And we cannot think that it's okay for us to live to live better than monarchs in medieval time, when people across the world are stuck in 17th, 18th century. you know we have to do something. We have to say something. We have to make sure that life on earth doesn't stay the same way we found it. you know I think that's my message for all of us. We should start having this conversation, engage. Pick a country that you will make an effort to follow every day. Pick a country and read about your government's foreign policy to it. Look what companies in your country do business in that country, and see whether or not there is people being taken advantage of, because so that we can have a better living quality, right? So that's really my message to conclude. uh, you know for the people getting offended with their nationalistic views, I don't curse, but I would say screw you. I don't care. If you can only think about your selfish self, there is not even a point to talk, right? But for the rest of us who are compassionate, kind, and hoping for a better future, this call is for you. So let's take action today. And thank you for inviting me to the show, to the program. I can't wait to get back to connect with you. By the way, I'm planning to visit Lansing around December, so I hope to see you.
I'm here every day for you. All right.
Awesome.
Anytime.
Yeah,
And I don't want to say too many words. Much love to you. I want your words to ring throughout the history from the show. You're an
thank,
amazing person, and I'm so proud to know you.
thank you. I appreciate it, Jerry.
I'll see you.